Good evening to all, sir. Actually, a warm welcome to all of them to this. My voice is clear, sir?
Hi, yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. So, welcome all to this session. So, firstly, I want to introduce Dr. Abdul sir, who is to start this evening. And actually, we have started the IEEE student engineering an idea of compassion as one of our major ambitions is to strengthen the present for the better tomorrow. With this motive only, we have started the IEEE branch in our college. Today also we are going to inaugurate listen to the previous two speakers. So, Madhu for this one. And last but not the least, I welcome Prabhakar Shetty, the senior manager and Ramgundam for this for this topic. Okay. Sir, a warm welcome to session.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Hello.
Yes, continue, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, others. Hello, sir. Now, I call upon the belong Principal Dr. S. Suresh Kumar, sir, to present to welcome others.
Satya, principals are not joined. Please continue with the next one.
Okay, sir.
Satya, is it audible, my voice?
Yes, sir. Now I follow Mr. Vadhu. IAS to introduce
Thank you, Satya. Good evening, everyone. So it's my privilege to invite Dr. V. Sandeep, sir, to inaugurate this Industry Application Society and Systems Council. So Dr. V. Sandeep received PhD from Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Delhi in 2013. He is currently working as Assistant Professor and Head, Department of Electrical Engineering, Associate Dean, Industrial Outreach and International Affairs at National Institute of Technology, NIT, Andhra Pradesh, and Chair of PALS, IAS, PES Joint Chapter, IEEE Vizag Bay Section. He is also Branch Counselor or Advisor of NIT AP, IEEE Student Branch, PES, PLS, IAS Student Branch Chapter. He worked as Assistant Professor and Coordinator at Central University of Karnataka from 2013 to 2019. He received Gandhian Young Technological Innovation Award 2013, selected as among the top 24 innovators across the country by Innovation Challenge 2014, selected in top 10 Innovative Projects Award 2014 at doctoral level by Indian National Academy of Engineering, finalist of IITD Class of 89 Innovation Award 2012, silver medal of for best research paper by Indian Railway Board and IE India in 2017. Dr. AVJ Abdul Kalam National Award in 2017, listed in Next Wall of Fame with recognition as top 50 expert faculties in the field of engineering across India 2019 and Young Faculty Award in Electrical Engineering 2020 and IEEE India Council Outstanding Young Professional Award in 2020. He organized more than 200 technical events for the engineering students. He delivered more than 50 popular lectures on energy and education at reputed institutes and organizations. He He guided successfully 50 BTech and MTech theses, 50 research interns, 2 PhD theses, and currently guiding 7 PhD students. He is IEEE senior member, PELS, IAS, IES, PELS, and Standards Association, and also IEEE brand ambassador and IEEE young professional. He published about 50 research papers in repeated international journals and conferences. He received project grants from UGC and IEEE and holds 1 patent. He is the mentor for few startups. His current research interests include microgrids, smart grids, electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, and machine learning in energy system. Good evening, sir, and welcome you, sir.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me for this inaugural program of IAS student branch chapter at Swarnanda College of Engineering.
Yes, sir.
I hope my voice is clear.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay, yeah. First of all, I would like to also congratulate the team of Swarnanda College of Engineering for taking this initiative to start the technical student branch of IEEE, particularly Industrial Application Society, and I'm glad to be part of this occasion today. And yes, all of you know that this IEEE, I think some echo is coming. It is from my side. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So all of you know that IEEE working domains, and it's open to, opportunities in particularly fields of interest like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That is what we call as STEM education. And what we are doing as IEEE members, actually, we are trying to create enthusiasm in this STEM education and also working hard for the advancement of the technology for humanity. That's what the tagline of the IEEE. And through IEEE activities, we are trying to inspire the global community through our highly cited publications, research work, conferences, technology standards, and our professional and educational activities. And this is what we are doing it. And I hope all the members of IEEE, they know what are the important benefits of also IEEE. I just make summarize of that actually within span of 1 minute. And we used to get a lot of educational research and career resources for the students and professional members. And also, we try to receive a lot of continuous and update knowledge from in technical domain and various sources like that can be through e-resources, emails, website, and print material, etc. And also, as already, it's already widely recognized that IEEE is being primary source for the technical and standards, particularly in electronics and communication and online subject. And also we will try to get the good recognition while applying awards and fellowship. And it's also good, useful for the students for getting the job opportunities. And main particularly this IEEE membership will be recognized at at your workplace or also at the global level, no matter wherever you are working. And also we try to go linkage good networking with the technical resource persons, actually industry persons, other academic persons in other institutes and all. And this is how we will get a lot of opportunities. And of course IEEE provides the project grants and travel grants and prizes awards for the students, and including the scholarships also. And most importantly, this will also, it will become a common platform in your professional career. And now I wish that this new IAS student branch chapter at Swarnanda College of Engineering, they can focus on different variety of events, what they can conduct in annually, and they can do the professional activities, technical activities, even non-technical activities also that you can conduct it. So some kind of a humanitarian based some activities, and then some pre-university activities also that you can do it. So this is how you have a lot of scope that you can conduct it. And similarly, and I'm glad that we are getting kickstart the event that we have today, and that is the inaugural talk by Mr. Chaitanya, Senior Manager from NTPC. This is what we would like to see academic and then industry linkages actually. And this is really kickstart for the Swarnanda College of Engineering, particularly IAS student branch today. So I wish all the best to the IAS student branch chapter at Swarnanda. and we will be there and to extend our support from our section as well as chapter. And any support, any time they can call us and they can reach out to email as well as over phone, and we will be there to help. And my greetings to Mr. Chaitanya, NTPC sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, please inaugurate our section, sir. I make you as presenter, sir.
Oh, okay. Yes, I am just doing it. Yeah. So I request to join Mr. Chaitanya also to be part of this inauguration.
Definitely,
So,
sir. Definitely, sir.
yes. So myself and then Mr. Chaitanya from NTPC, we are glad to inaugurate this today's IEEE IAS student branch chapter at Swarnanda College of Engineering. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
your
sir.
briefing, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, continue.
Thank you, sir. Now, I introducing Chaitanya, sir, asset manager at Ramagundam, Telangana. He completed at JNU
But the
Hyderabad.
voice is not clear.
Hello, sir.
Voice is not. Okay, it's okay now. It's okay now.
Okay, sir. Thank you. And MBA through distance education from Annamala University, and joined the NTPC in 2006 and continues the same. He worked 2 years in operating department at Rajiv Gandhi Combined Cycle Power Plant, NTPC. Later 8 years he worked in operating department at NTPC Ramagundam Super Thermal Power Station. From last 4 years he was worked as SR manager in electrical maintenance department. Now I request to our speaker CHP Chaitanya sir to address the virtual gathering. Welcome, sir. Hello.
Good evening, Sandeep sir, Sachinayan sir, and my friend Mr. Madhu. Thank you for inviting me for this inaugural session of IEEE student branch chapter. Mr. Madhu, he's a very good friend of mine. He's my college mate, and he has requested me to give a small presentation about our NTPC. So I feel very obliged that I'll be sharing my experiences with you. So I want this session to be an interactive session rather than a one-way communication. So actually, it's good that so many scholars were there who have, senior faculty members are there who have given so many presentations, scholar papers, etc. So now I am feeling somewhat jealous because at the time when I am studying, we used to do such type of activities. Now, once we come into the industry field, we don't find such time to to go for these technical measures which are in knowing the technical measures which are available. So I wish all of you to have a great time in this chapter. Do your research work as well as the very basic, very first saying which you are saying, contributing to the society. That's a good initiative. So you learn and help others also to learn. And I thank all of you for giving me this opportunity. Madhu, shall I start the presentation?
Yeah, you can start. You can start.
So you have to give me the share option. Madhu.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
So
Maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, clear.
Okay, na?
Sound
Okay.
good.
So, so I am from NTPC, National Thermal Power Corporation. It is a large power major in India. Okay, with a generation capacity about 65,000 megawatt. Okay, I am right now I am looking after electrical maintenance department, looking after the switch gears, motors, electrostatic precipitators, switch relays, etc. So right now, I would like, I would like to throw you some light on challenges and opportunities in generating stations. Okay. So before starting the presentation, I would like to show you a paper clipping. This is a paper clipping from the date 5th April 2020. Are you aware of this? I mean, one question, are all the people from electrical or from different backgrounds? Hello? Is my voice?
Yeah,
Electrical, sir.
you don't know it. All from AAA background.
Hello?
Acha, I think, yeah. Is it audible?
Okay. Madam.
Okay. All are AAA background students only.
Okay, then it will be fine. Okay, right. So, I mean, if you have any doubts, you can stop me in between and ask your questions. Okay, there is no doubt. Absolutely, there is no problem from my side. Okay, this is the day on April 5th, 2020. So during this pandemic condition, our beloved Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has asked to switch off all the lights on that particular Sunday from night 9 o'clock to 9 p.m. Right? It is in order to express the solidarity to all the people who have given their everything in fighting this pandemic called coronavirus or COVID-19. So there are essential service members, hospital members, people from police department, and several other are there. So to express the solidarity, Mr. Narendra Modi has asked us to switch off all the lights and lit diyas, or what we call the candles, okay, or mobile torchlights. So little bit did we know that there are some other people who have worked relentlessly for 2 days for this event, because in India, normally the all India demand will be around 170 gigawatts. Normally it will be around 170 gigawatt. But because of this pandemic, it has come down to 120, 118 to 120 megawatt, 120 gigawatt, sorry, 120 gigawatt, because many of the industries were set off. Okay. But when our PM has announced to switch off the lights, we have anticipated that there will be 10 to 12 gigawatt, sorry, 12 to 14 gigawatt dip in the total power generation. But to our surprise, the decline in the power generation was around 31 gigawatt. Normally, if a 500 megawatt unit trips, there will be a change in the frequency of about 0.1 Hz. If that is the case, if that around 87%, around 30 megawatt, 28 gigawatt power, if it has been failed, so it could it could create a greater havoc. So, but because of the tireless efforts from different people, right from the power generating companies, right from the DISCOMs, the Transcos, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited, then POSOCO, Power Grid Operations, and regional road dispatch centers and national road dispatch centers, the frequency contained from 49.7 Hz to 50.25 Hz. It's a great achievement which got unnoticed. This is all because of electrical engineers who have worked day and night for around 2 days to avoid any havoc because of blackouts. I think this is a great achievement, but which went unnoticed. So we have thought that the POSOCO has thought that 10 to 12 gigawatt of reduction will be there, but actual reduction went up to 31 gigawatt. So, but the frequency variation is from 49.7 Hz to 50.25 Hz. And how we have done this, that I will let you know in a short while. So, what is an electrical grid? You know, there are n number of generating stations, n number of household consumers, industrial consumers, and different renewable energy sources, which are contributing to a large network, which is called as electrical grid. In a simple way, it's such a huge grid, around 170 gigawatt huge grid, so that a small consumer or a small industrial consumer cannot change the voltage or the frequency of the grid. It is so rigid that the frequency and the voltage profiles will be altogether the same at any point of time. If it is a small one, because it is connected with n number of elements. But if it so happens that if the interstate generation system gets collapsed, then there will be a chance of total blackout. Normally, this grid consists of three elements. What is the electrical generation? The second one is the transmission, and the third one is the distribution. So even if you light a switch in our house, that is giving us, directly or indirectly, we are connecting to the grid. So everything, straight from the moment we switch on the light to a huge generating company generating huge amount of power, everything is connected through electrical grid. It is stretching thousands of kilometers and connecting millions of homes and businesses today. Okay, if you look at the installed capacity of India, normally huge portion of the generation is from the fossil fuels like coal and lignite and gas. These are called fossil fuels. Whereas other renewable energy sources like hydro, wind, solar, they are all renewable energy sources, which they are contributing around 35 to 40%, around 35% now. Earlier, its growth was very, very less. But the government of India is giving a good initiative for every power generating station to go for this renewable energy sources, so that ultimate goal of around 50% renewable energy sources by 2030 will be met from all the contributions of the generation stations and the discounts. Hope my voice is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. Because it so happens that it is going on one side. That's why I'm not getting whether I'm communicating it properly or not. Okay. So if you see the major turbo generator sizes in India, there are a lot of them. So here we are saying the 210 megawatt generating unit at our NTPC station Korba. Next to that is our NTPC Ramagundam power station, where we are having 200 megawatt unit, 500 megawatt units also. 200 megawatt 3 numbers and 500 megawatt units 400. Right now we are having 2,600 installed capacity here. Then this is a 660 megawatt generator, which is at CPET from Chhattisgarh. Then this is 816 megawatt generator from NTPC Kudgi in Karnataka. Then 1000 megawatt from Kundankulam nuclear power plant. This is the highest generating unit as of now in India. Now coming to our station, our company NTPC. So NTPC, it has started in the year 1975 and is contributing to power generation from the last 35 years. And right now we are having 64,880 megawatts of power installed. We have total 47 NTPC stations, including hydel, renewable energy sources, gas, etc. But the major chunk of this generation is from the coal power plants only. So we are having joint ventures with the state electricity boards. Right now we are having 25 joint ventures with different coal, gas, and s- uh, consultancy projects, etc. So NTPC has successfully turned out the poor performing coal power stations. 4 of them are there. So actually, the average PLF of these 4 stations like Badapur, Unchaha, Talcher, and Tanda are at a very low value. So the NTPC has taken it, and the turnaround capability of these stations have improved a lot in terms of the revenue as well as the plant load factor. And NTPC, as an initiative from the government of India, NTPC is also increasing its share in renewable energy sources by adding significant capacity of resources. So it is planning to acquire 25% of the power generation only through renewable energy sources. It is listed in almost all greater listed as the best workplace in the Forbes list, as well as in all the top lists among the world. So we do have experience in NTPC. We do have experience in operation, erection of thermal-based power plants. NTPC is giving its help in Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which is a Clean India project devised by our PM. And we have established Power Management Institute in Noida, Delhi. So where training is given to students, um, uh, associates from state electricity boards, and we do have NTPC School of Business where the courses like postgraduate diploma in management are being offered. And from 2019 onwards, this e-office system called Pradeep has been launched. This has given us the opportunity to make our offices paperless. Right now, we are not using any single paper, and all the transactions like official communication or the movement of the files, everything is through e-office only. Um, as a participant, as a participant, NTPC has given this thought of e-office for environmental protection. So, how does a coal-based thermal power plant looks right now? So, can you see the mouse now? Hello.
Yes. Yes.
So, so this is the generator part. As you are studying in your academics, that for running any generator, a conductor is required and a relative motion is required. Okay, so based on the medium on which this turbine rotates, it is defined as coal-based thermal power plant, or diesel power plant, or gas power plant. But the media through which it will be rotated, that itself gives the name for the power plant. So right now, if we take the case of a coal-based thermal power plant, what it does is we are using a steam turbine here. So for running this prime mover, this turbine is called as a prime mover. So for running the generator, we do require a prime mover that is called as a turbine. So this turbine is a steam turbine. So how we need to convert steam, we need to have steam. So water will be converted into steam here. So this is the boiler portion where the conversion from water to steam will take place. The steam will in turn drive this turbine. The turbine is directly coupled to the generator where our power will be developed. So then it will normally the potential at the generator end terminals will be 21 kV, and it will be stepped up to 400 kV. Okay. Now, there are other factors. So we need to light up the boiler. We need to run this boiler to have the steam. So for any better combustion, there are certain principles like stoichiometric ratio. where adequate quantity of fuel and adequate quantity of air is required for combustion process. So fuel is given by two means. One is from the oil and the other by coal. Now, coal we cannot directly burn at the starting time. So what we will do is we will be lighting up the boiler by means of oil. So oil can catch the fire immediately as compared to coal. So initially during the starting purpose, oil is being given to the boiler, and once coal takes over, then the oil will be withdrawn. Okay. So now if we take the case when the unit is running, so coal will be fed directly into this boiler. How it is done? No, normally if you see this, sorry, if you see this, here we are having the coal mines, two different railway systems, like we are having merry-go-round and direct connections with railways. So the coal will be transported directly from the mines into our location. This is called a track hopper. From here, the large lumps of coal will be split into smaller pieces in this crusher house. Then through conveyor, it will be fed into the bunker. This whole portion is called as coal handling portion. It will be slightly distant from this power plant. From this portion, it will be transferred to conveyors up to the bunker. From here, it is called as the unit portion. This will be these from bunker to the switchyard. Everything will be located at a particular location. Okay. So here we are having a feeder. Whatever the coal that is there in the bunker will be fed into a mill. This coal will be pulverized. Pulverized means that will be changed to powder form in this mill. And then with this fan, this is called as a primary air fan. This primary air fan will lift the coal from this mill, and it will let into the boiler. So we did get the fuel from the coal handling plant. So similarly, we should get the air. So through this FD fan, air will be taken directly from the atmosphere and fed into the boiler. So whatever the parameters required for boiler combustion are met. One is the coal and the other one is the air. That is basically we need oxygen and the ignition temperature. Initially, it will be lit by oil. Once that is done, the flame will be continuous. So this is there are some other factors which are there in this total power plant. Like once the steam is dumped from the turbine, it will go into the condenser. So in condenser, the steam. Any problem?
So please continue. No problem.
So in this condenser, the steam will be condensed into water, again into water. Okay, so that water will again be taken back into the deaerator. This is LP heater, boiler feed pump, HP heater, and again it will come into the boiler. So this is the economizer. These are intricate parts of the power plant. Okay, so this is the complete closed cycle. So from boiler, steam will go into the turbine. Here, the water, after getting the work done, after the enthalpy of the steam is removed in the turbine, again the steam will get condensed into water by means of condensate extraction pump and a boiler feed pump. Again, the water will be let into the boiler. Here, the economizer, in the economizer portion, water will be preheated before going into the superheater section. Okay, so there are other factors. Like, so for ensuring the airflow, we need to have a draft. So air draft. This is forced draft fan, and this is the induced draft fan. By means of these two fans, air will be continuously, the air will flow continuously into the boiler, right? Then this is an important parameter that is called as electrostatic precipitator. Once coal is burned, there will be ash particles in the flue gas. So this flue gas, we should not let the particulate matter enter into the atmosphere. This electrostatic precipitator, because of its high voltage at around 80 kV, 70 to 80 kV, will remove the gas particulate matter from the flue gas stream. So this will be let into the hoppers. ash hoppers. These are called as ash hoppers. So from this, it will be again carried to the ash sump and then to the ash dike. So I'm not going details about this one. So there'll be two types of ash. One is called the bottom ash, which is directly collected at the bottom, and the other one is called as the fly ash. It will it flies off from here. Due to gravity, some hard particles will come down. That is called as the bottom ash, whereas lighter particles will pass through this and get into the electrostatic precipitator where they will be collected. So this is called as the fly ash. Okay, whatever the emissions are there, they have to be let out from the chimney. Now, there are certain things which we have to look after here. The first thing is emission norms. So we should not let the particulate matter at a higher value. So there is a limit. So for an older plant, the limit is 100 milligram per normal meter cube. This electrostatic precipitator efficiency should be on the higher side, like around 99%, so that particulate matter will not come out of the chimney. That we have to ensure. It's a responsibility towards our environment. Okay. Second thing, now how come the load of the generator can be varied? So the amount of steam that we are giving into the turbine will be regulated by the boiler drum pressure. So whatever the pressure, or how much pressure we are giving, and how much with how much temperature we are letting the steam go into the turbine, that will decide the power generation from the generator. Okay, so we need to regulate the coal. Here, this small element called as feeder will regulate the amount of coal flow that is going into the boiler. So if the feeder speed, if the speed of the feeder is less, lesser coal will be given into the mill and lesser coal will be available at the boiler. If higher speed is there, obviously more coal will be fed into the boiler. This is the thing that drives the, that in turn will give the actual load of the generator. And there is one more thing. So this drum will be at a very high pressure, like around 180 kg per centimeter square. It's a sort of small reservoir. That means if a sudden urgent requirement of load is there, then obviously, the steam flow that is going into the turbine is regulated by a valve here. I have not shown in the figure. There will be turbine control valve. So this valve will regulate the amount of steam flow that is going into the turbine. For momentary purposes, if we open the turbine valve more steam will be flown into the turbine, and the generation capacity will be on the higher side. But it is for only a momentary time, because the coal, as long as the coal, as long as the feeder speed is fixed, we cannot have a higher steam flow just by opening the valves. Momentary load values can be met by opening the control valves, but shall be substantiated at a later time by increasing the feeder coal flow. On the same way, if we want a sudden load reduction, what we can do is we can close the valve instantaneously. So the steam flow will get reduced. Obviously, the pressure will get raised because we are giving a restriction here. So the generator load will be immediately reduced. But again, we need to drop down this feeder speed so that the drum pressure can be retained. So a shorter time, for shorter moment, this valve closing can give us instantaneous megawatt in a thermal power plant. There are there are intricate details in the whole power plant. I'm not going deep into that. Okay. Now, coming to a combined cycle power plant. Here, why it is called as a combined cycle? Because we are using two fuels here. One is the gas or naphtha, and the other one is the steam here. Now, this is the gas turbine. Okay. So fuel will be let into the inlet of this gas turbine. This will be burnt at around 1100 to 1200 degrees temperature. So this gas turbine will give us the power. Okay, so this gas turbine is directly connected with the compressor along with the generator. Okay, so this compressor is is a huge element in this gas turbine, because whatever the power generated by this gas turbine, so 2/3 of this power will be taken away by this compressor, and only 1/3 will be available for this one. So here for the combustion purpose, the air is driven by means of the compressor, and fuel will be let into the gas turbine through fuel oiling pumps. It can be either gas or the naphtha. Okay. Now, after it does the work, whatever the fuel or the air which we are giving to the gas turbine, after it does the work, the temperature will get reduced from 1100. To be precise, it is 1125. 1125, it will come out as 580 degrees. So 580 degrees of gas is having huge enthalpy in it, huge heat energy in it. So we can again use this gas for bringing out the power in that. So we are using here other sources like HRSG, heat recovery steam generator. This is one heat HRSG, and this one is the other heat recovery steam generator. So we are having two gas turbines here. Whatever the flue gas that is coming off the gas turbine is let into a heat recovery steam generator. It is also a similar like boiler only, but here combustion won't take place. Only the heat from the flue gas which is left out after the gas turbine will be used to create water from, to convert the water from steam, convert the steam from water. Here also we will be having water drums, which we have shown in the earlier picture. Okay, so similar arrangement will be there. Here there will be two drums. One is the HP drum and the LP drum. That will obviously send the steam to the steam turbine here. This steam turbine is again coupled with the generator, and this works in similar fashion as discussed in the last thermal power plant. So this is called as a combined cycle, because we are using the gas turbine as well as the steam turbine. Right? Any doubts? No? Shall I proceed? Adu okay na?
Okay, sir. You can proceed.
Next. Now, after discussing about the fossil fuel generating stations like coal, lignite, and gases like naphtha. So right now, we are talking about the renewable energies. Why this renewable energy has come into picture right now? Because if you see the recent paper clippings, like air pollution cuts Indians' life expectancy by 5.2 years. India is the world's second most polluted country. It's cutting lives by 5.2 years because of these, because of the emissions from the fossil fuel generating stations. The life expectancy in our country is coming down. Okay, so they have reported as 5.2 years, and India is also termed as the world's second most populated country. So no longer we can use this fossil fuels for power generation. So whatever the emissions which are coming out of this chimney, they are reaching carbon dioxide. So these carbon dioxide emissions are on the higher trend. If we compare the trend right from 1982 to 2020, it has grown at a higher level. So this in turn is heating up the Earth's atmosphere also. So do we have a potential, in other means, where we can get the power generation from different sources, as we do have, like renewable energy. So we do have the potential to get power from renewable energy sources. Like we are having a potential of 1 or 2 gigawatt from wind power and 750 gigawatt from solar energy. So this is the clipping taken from the source Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and CEA. Okay, so the shift is now towards the installation of um, power generators from renewable energy sources. So our government of India has set an accelerated capacity addition in renewable energy sources. So by 2030, our GOI, government of India, has set the target to get to get installed power from renewable energy sources at a percentage of 54. Right now, we can see in the picture. And right now, we are having renewable energy sources of around 36%. But by 2030, it is planning to get it to around 54%. And in line with that, it has accelerated the renewable energy capacity, and at a compound annual growth rate of 17.33%, it is increasing. And if you take the capacity breakup, wind power and solar power are almost on the same side, but still we do find some potential in the solar as compared to the wind power. Now, if we take the electricity generation from renewable energy sources, it is up to 127 units from financial year 2020. And if we exclude large hydro, the growth rate is almost the same in the previous years. So we do have a solar power generation plant in NTPC Ramagundam. We are having a 10 megawatt power plant here. So the power generation process in a solar power plant will be like this. There will be initially a PV modules here by means of sunlight. These PV modules get the energy from the sunlight. So by liberation of the electrons in these photovoltaic cells, electrical energy will be generated. So these series of PV modules will be connected to a string combiner box here. So these are the string combiner box where all these strings of PV modules will be connected. Normally, this will be a DC source. So this has to be changed to an AC source. So we do require inverters here for converting them from DC to AC. Then once that is done, we will be getting 380 volts of AC. Then this will be again stepped up to 33 kV AC, 33 kV AC. And then this will be fed into the 33 by 132 kilowatt switchgear. Then this can be directly connected to the grid. Okay, this is one potential source where NTPC is concentrating. It is it is installing different solar power plants at our existing power plants, and also we are having abundant water sources, because for running a power plant we do require huge quantity of water. So small reservoirs are available in almost all NTPC plants. They are planning to provide floating solar plants. So in Ramagundam, this is the existing 10 megawatt plant, which is just beside our main plant. So in addition to that, a 100 megawatt power plant is being erected and being commissioned, and we are expecting by May 31st it will be synchronized to grid. There are other renewable energy sources like wind also, which is having a huge potential. Now, coming into the commercial aspects of power generation. Normally, when we are going to set up a power plant, so we need to have certain agreements. One is called as the power purchase agreement, and the other one is called the fuel supply agreement. So it happens with all the major plants, except the captive power plants. Captive power plants are dedicated for particular manufacturing units, whereas for interstate generating stations, which are called as ISGS. So for that, whatever the power that is developed will be given different beneficiaries. The state electricity boards are called as beneficiaries. So there existed agreement between this power generating companies and the end users, which are state electricity boards or beneficiaries. So normally this power purchase agreement will be for starting from 5 years to around 25 years, and it can again be renewed after that period. And there is one more agreement called as the fuel supply agreement. So this fuel supply agreement exists between the power generator company and the fuel supplier. It could be coal or oil. This will be also from 5 years to 15 years like that. So we do require fuel, which is the raw material for our manufacturing process, whereas we do require end consumer, who are the beneficiaries for using the product developed by us, which is the generating company. If we go slightly deep into this tariff policy, we are having two charges. One is the capacity charge, and second one is the energy charges. Right. So I want to give you a small idea about this one. Capacity charges. Suppose almost all for generating a 1 megawatt power, we do require 5 to 6 crores of money for installing a plant. But we cannot get that money directly from the end consumer, because they will be providing the money only after we deliver the product. After the consumption of the product only, they will be giving back their money. But we need to set up large buildings. We need to procure equipments. We need to employ manpower to get the work done. We need to take certain material inventory, stock, materials, which are known as the working capital. So these all things are involved. So normally what is being done is, by means of equity or loan, this capital for establishing a plant will be taken. So we will be taking directly loans from differential financial institutions or from equity. So whatever the loan that is being taken, interest has to be paid. Then for the equipment which is bought out, we need to pay the depreciation. Then interest on loan, I said, depreciation is there. Then O&M costs, so operation and maintenance cost is there. So these are all what we do is what is being done is, this will be spread equally for this 20 years. Let us say if the power purchase agreement is for 20 years, this total amount will be split into different portions. So this acts as a capacity charge. It's a capacity charge, fixed cost. This is called as a fixed cost. So this will be determined, and it will be slightly escalated year after the year. And the second one is the energy charges. These energy charges are directly based on the fuel rates. So we are consuming coal or lignite, or we are consuming oil like a HF, heavy fuel oil, or light diesel oil. So energy charge is the amount of the fuel that is spent for generating the power. So whatever the energy charge is there, that will be directly taken from the beneficiary. Suppose if we the basic difference between capacity charge and energy charge is, capacity charge has to be paid throughout the period where this power PPA agreement is there, whereas energy charge is paid only when we consume the, when the end user consumes the power. Understood, no? So energy charge will be paid only when the power generator company is delivering the power. Whereas capacity charge, for calculating the capacity charge, there is a different mechanism. Like, so we need to be available. That means if a generating company is available for generating the power, then obviously whether it produces the generation or not, this capacity charge has to be paid. But energy charge will be paid only if generating company is delivering the power. I'm expecting some doubts here. Madhu?
Yes, sir. Some questions are there in the chat box. Shall I read?
Okay.
What will you do waste like used water in boil high density dust particles?
Come again.
What will you do the
Hmm.
waste like used water in boiler and high density dust particles?
High density dust particles. Okay. Okay. First question is wastewater. Actually, we are employing a method called zero liquid discharge. So our aim is, I mean, in here we are using here we are having two wastewaters. One is the storm water and the other one is the effluent water. Storm water is the water which we get from the rains, and the effluent water which is mixed with the waste or ash that is there. So it will be chemically treated again and again, be used as fire water, service water, and this ash water. So this recycled water that is there, we do have this effluent treatment plant. So in effluent treatment plant, this water will be chemically treated and will be again used as uh, a good water for taking the ash directly from the plant to the ash dike. And again, whatever the water that is coming from that ash dike will be again let into the plant, chemically treated, and again recycled. So the amount of water which is letting out of the flower plant, uh, we have reduced we have reduced a lot. And second question is,
what is the importance of power system state estimation?
our system
State estimation.
State estimation.
Yeah.
Can I see the question?
Yeah. What is the power system state estimation?
I didn't get you. Can you? State estimation.
Hussein Pirwali.
No, I'm not getting you. What exactly is the question?
Okay. The next question is, how much power does a power plant produce?
How much power does the power plant produce? So actually, as I said, hello. As I said, we have different generating capacities like 200 megawatt, even 60 megawatt power plants are also there. They are, I mean, old plants. Okay. Now, whatever the generators that are coming out are of huge size, like 800 megawatt, 660 megawatt, or 800 megawatt. That is called as a supercritical boiler. Earlier, we used to have this drum type boilers. What I have shown here, the drum type boilers. Right now, we are having a supercritical boiler. That means there won't be any drum. What exactly this drum does is, it will circulate the water in the boiler. So water will be sent inside the drum. A steam water mixture will again come out of the drum. Okay, steam water mixture normally here from the drum. Tubes will go into the boiler, get heated up, and again the water steam mixture will come from the top. Then once it is heated, the steam will let out of the drum. Okay. Now, supercritical boilers don't have this drum. Whatever the water that is coming over there, it will directly go into the boiler and come as a stream. It is a once for all circulation. So we by means of supercritical boilers, the efficiency is on the higher side, and the cost involved is also coming down. So it could be, I mean, power generation can be from right from 10 megawatt, or it could be up to the 800 megawatt. As in nuclear power plant, we are getting up to 1,000 megawatt.
Yeah. One more question. Is there any limit for power produced by thermal power plants by the government side?
No, absolutely not. Basically, there are two constraints. One is the metallurgical limits. Suppose if you are going for higher megawatt, obviously the pressures and the temperatures are on the higher side. So when the temperature is on the higher side, the whatever the metal which we are using for the turbine or the boiler should be capable of taking that metallurgical constraints. So that is one thing. And the second, that's the main thing. Second thing is environmental norms. If we are avoiding the norms given by the pollution control board, then there won't be any problem. What are the advantages of hydroponic? I didn't get that.
What are the advantages of hydroponic natural draft cooling towers? Hydroponic natural draft cooling towers.
Yeah, what is this hydroponic means? The design, huh? I mean to say, is hydroponic means the design of the cooling tower?
Yeah, maybe design.
I mean, that I think that the hydroponic design is basically to give strength for the cooling tower.
Okay, you can continue this.
Okay, right.
Process.
Okay, so capacity charges and energy charges. What I am saying is capacity charges means what are the fixed cost that is involved in the power plant that will be collected throughout the power purchase agreement period. Whereas energy charges are being paid only if the generator develops the power. Okay, generates the power. So every month, this state electricity boards or the beneficiaries or the end users will pay off whatever the
Dear participants, please wait for a few more minutes. There is a technical issue from the speaker side. There is a network issue. Chaitanya, please start the session. Continue the session. I make you as a presenter. Chaitanya, my voice is audible to you? Sorry for the technical issue. Came from the speaker side. So Pranavi, please close the session by saying some formal vote of thanks. Pranavi, please continue.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pranvi from EEE Department of Swanandra College of Engineering and Technology, and I'm here to present the vote of thanks for today's webinar on Industry Application Society. Firstly, I would like to thank our management secretary and correspondent, Dr. S. Ramesh Babu Garu, and Principal Dr. S. Suresh Kumar Sir of SKET for giving permission to organizing the webinar and inviting guest lecturers. Now I would like to thank our webinar speaker Chaitanya Sir, Manager NTPC for enlightening us with their knowledge. I would like to thank our beloved HOD of EEE Department for taking out time from their busy schedule and delivering their valuable words. I would like to thank Dr. V. Sandeep Sir, IAS, PES, PELS Joint Chapter Chair, Vizag Bay Section. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank V. Madhu Sir, Associate Professor of IAS Chapter Advisor, who really worked hard to make this event successful. Now, I sincerely thank all the staff members, students, participants for making this webinar as a grand success. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pranavi. All of
Thank
you,
you,
please
sir.
submit the feedback form to get the certificate. It is active for only 1 hour. Submit. Posting in the chat box.